There's a big argument like pins first or tails first when it comes to mortise and tenons. And since they're both completely laid out, it really makes no difference. But there is a logic to it. Sometimes the wording is that you should always cut your mortise first. And the reason that we say that is, especially when you when you're machine cutting, it makes zero difference. But when you're hand cutting, there's some logic to that. The mortise is always the hardest part to do, that hole or that pocket or the socket. To chop it out is just tough work. And it makes sense to get the hardest part of the joint done first, that you don't have a lot of ability to do correction on. And then do the tenon second, because you can alter or adjust the tenon, which is much easier to cut, and you have full access to the tenon. You can adjust the tenon then to fit into the mortise. Yeah, but right now, I'm going to cut my mortise first. I mentioned the other day, I have a completely different way that I do this. It might not, and that's a big might not, I doubt, but it might not be quite as fast as an English-trained cabinet maker would chop these things. I learned how to do it more of an Eastern approach, where it's not the bang, 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 knock it out. It's more the let's cut it just right thing. So it starts with, just like in the dovetails, me establishing my boundaries, or my lines. So I'll come back and I'll take a chisel, and if we've got a 5/8 of an inch wide mortise, you do not want to use a 5/8 of an inch wide chisel. You always have to go down to the next size. You always start on your end grain cuts, and then you can do your long grain cuts. So on this one, I'm going to start by taking my chisel. I'm going to put it right into my knife line. I'm going to bring it straight up and down as we did before, and I'm lightly going to tap it. You hear that? That was light. I'm just taking that scribe line I have from a 32nd of an inch to maybe a 16th of an inch. So it's a light touch. So I'll come back over here, straight up and down, lightly tap, and lightly tap. Now you do your end grains first. When you come back to do your long grains, they can be a little bit trickier in that they can split wide open. So you never hit a long grain with quite the same amount of force that you did on an end grain. So I'm going to come back, put my chisel in, go straight up and down, and lightly tap here, and the same over here. And you can see that this boundary, or this border now, is just a fraction deeper than it was with my knife and with my cutting gauge. So I'll come back here, I'm going to take my chisel, and I'm going to just start to pop out, just like we did on our dovetails, to create that little ledge. I want to be careful when I remove my chips not to violate that outside edge. And the long grain, I'll pop out just a little bit here. Total control. I'm not using too much force at all. That's level 1. So you can see now I've given myself a little ledge that the chisel can fit up against, but I'm not ready to go crazy. So I'm going to go one more depth down, kind of light. So with my chisel up against my edge, straight up and down, I'll tap it in just a little bit harder, but nothing crazy yet. Because my point is this outside edge is what people will see. So I want to preserve it as well as I can, and the chisel sometime, if you're not holding it right, can bend or damage the fiber to the very edge. So I want to be certain I've got a good straight edge when I get ready to start whacking this thing for my chisel to be supported against. Now look, when I take these chips out, it's going to be really important too. The way I remove them, I'm not going to pull these up so that they pry over the edge. I'm going to kind of bend them back and forth and pull them toward the inside to pull them out. And I'll come back. Long grain, again, is always much softer and lighter in your touches. Okay, so now what I've got is I started to create a pretty nice size hole. It's got some depth to it. And now is when I can go ahead and start to act like an Englishman. But I am going to keep my chisel straight up and down. End grains first. Long grain second. Long grain I won't hit nearly that hard. Now, up to this point in time, everything we've done with our chisels has been bevel up. Usually when your bevel's up, it means that you're making a straight or flat type cut in. To get this wood out of the center, I got to go the opposite way. I got to go bevel down. By putting my bevel down, now it forces me to put my chisel up like this to be able to make the cut in. So at this point in time, all of my cuts, my bevel will be down on my chisel. And already, I'm pretty close to the halfway point. Again, that piece, I'm going to be careful with how it comes out. And with my chisel, you'll notice I'm holding it and doing everything I can so that this back edge doesn't come in line. I don't know if I'm holding that well enough for you to see it. So I'm lifting up when I'm removing my piece instead of prying down to pop that piece out. Okay, so from here, I'm going to go back to this side because I'm about halfway done. So I'm going to do just as before, only this is the exit side. This is what people are going to see. I'll put it right in my scribe line, straight up and down. Okay, so that, again, it's a slow step. The first couple of these are a little bit on the slow side. I've got my bevel up on this one because I'm not really digging quite as deep. Level one more round here, kind of soft. Okay, so I've got my rim established, so now I'm going to go a little bit more forceful. Chisel up against the edge. Okay, now I've got to put my bevel down because I'm starting to really get deep in my cut. Okay, so now I am getting pretty close to the halfway point, so I want to be somewhat careful because I don't want to let my chisel, with as much force as I'm striking it with, go all the way through from the top to bottom. Because it could, as it comes out the bottom, it would definitely not come out exactly where I want it to, and it might tear out some of that fiber that I tried so hard to preserve. And I'll come back and finish it from this side. Okay, so I'm through. I'll just get my bit taken out here.
You were using your fingers as a little extra stop there on that last one.
Yes. So what he was saying was at some point in time, and I'll really do it now, I don't want my chisel to push all the way through and out the other side. So as I've got some cleanup work to do here, I'll put my hand on my chisel like this, so it's a stop. So I can't push in any farther than that as I'm doing my cleanup. So I've got my shoulders here that I need to get cleaned up a little bit. And I'll always work to the halfway point. So there's that side. And this is face grain and it's gluing grain. So I don't want to have much of a relief cut on this side of it. So I'm trying to keep my chisel as straight and as true as I can. So there it is from one side to the other. There's still just a little bit of fluff in it, and what I'm doing right now is I'm just siding it to make sure that it doesn't look like there's any highs or lows. As I'm using this kind of like winding sticks. I see this very front edge here. As I sight through, I can see the very back edge. So by using those two as my winding stick areas, I can see if there's anything sticking up anywhere in between. And there's a little high spot here on the end grain, and then that's it.